Welcome back to William on Watch. As we'll see in this episode, Marco Rubio has stated clearly he will not obey court orders. As such, he has defiantly drawn a line in the sand, on one side of which is the Trump administration and on the other side is the United States Constitution. This is the recipe for a constitutional crisis. First, let's briefly look at the circumstances leading up to this. Kilmar Abrego Garcia entered the U.S. illegally at about the age of 16, presumably fleeing gang violence in his native El Salvador. In 2019, an immigration judge barred deportation back to El Salvador due to credible concerns of persecution from Salvadoran gangs. Despite that court order, ICE mistakenly deported him along with a couple of hundred others to El Salvador in March of this year, where they were incarcerated at the notorious Secot prison. An attorney for the Trump administration has admitted to that error in a court filing. Later, Judge Paula Zinnes ruled that the deportation was, quote, wholly lawless and violated the 2019 protection order. The government appealed, but the Fourth Circuit Court and the Supreme Court agreed that the removal was illegal and ordered the Trump administration to facilitate his return. Note that the courts were not concerned with what, if any, crimes had been committed by Abrego Garcia. His ordered return had absolutely nothing to do with that. Rather, it was the violation of the 2019 court order and the absence of due process guaranteed to Abrego Garcia by the Constitution that provided the basis for the order. Ever since, however, the entirety of MAGA world has been trying to justify his illegal removal based upon claims that he's a really bad guy.
In the case of El Salvador, absolutely. Absolutely. We deported gang members, including the one you had a margarita with. And that guy is a human trafficker, and that guy is a gangbanger, and the evidence is going to be clear.
It's notable, by the way, that when Marco provided this testimony before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on May 20th, he said, quote, and the evidence is gonna be clear. Well, that was over 2 weeks before Abrego Garcia's unannounced return to the U.S. So it's apparent that the Trump administration had been busy building a case against Abrego Garcia in advance of his return. And if he's ultimately deported again, Trump will claim the courts were wrong to order his return. He wants Abrego Garcia's potential guilt to distract us from the reality that Abrego Garcia had a right to due process, whether he's an angel or he's just another criminal like the convicted felon occupying the White House. He wants to distract us from the wanton illegality of the removal of all those who were sent to Secot without being afforded the due process demanded by the Constitution. They might all be guilty as sin, but that pure speculation has no effect on the obligation of the government to prove it or the defendant's right to a defense. So here's the thing about Trump. When you hire a clown, expect a circus. When you hire a convicted felon, expect a crime spree. And when you hire a clown who's also a convicted felon, well, you get the idea. And as we get into this next clip, please hit the like button if you're getting value from this video, and please share a link to this video with family and friends. I'm trying to build a channel, and doing so would be really helpful. Thank you.
There is a division in our government between the federal branch and the judicial branch. No judge in the judicial branch cannot tell me or the president how to conduct foreign policy. No judge can tell me how I have to outreach to a foreign partner or what I need to say to them.
So again, Rubio is trying to blow a bunch of toxic smoke. He suggests that the courts are trying to tell him how to conduct foreign policy, trying to tell him what to say. Of course, Rubio knows better, but he hopes the public does not. The courts did not order any of the above. The courts ordered the government to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia. Now, how the Trump administration was to accomplish that was left up to the Trump administration.
And if I do reach that foreign partner and talk to them, I am under no obligation to share that with the judiciary branch. Just like a judge cannot order me to negotiate with a foreign minister of Russia, they cannot order me to negotiate with a foreign minister or the president of El Salvador. And if I did negotiate with them, which we have responded to them, and we've told them we've had communications with the president of El Salvador, I am under no obligation under our division of powers in this country and to share with the judicial branch how I conducted diplomacy of the United States.
Again, Marco is trying to convince us that the judicial branch is overstepping. Plainly, the idea is to turn public opinion against the courts, which is designed to serve a greater goal in the future.
It would actually be counterproductive. If I started sharing with courts, or frankly, with the media, my conversations with foreign leaders and all of their details, no foreign leader would talk to me again, and we would break trust with them. So I have complied with every court order. What I won't comply with is an order to disclose what I'm saying and what we're talking about with a foreign leader, because then they won't talk to me. Diplomacy doesn't work that way.
Okay, now we're getting to the heart of this. Rubio conflates judicial interactions with disclosing confidential diplomatic communications to the media, because they're the same thing, right? No, the judicial branch is co-equal to the executive branch. He's implying that confiding in a U.S. federal judge is the same as putting his negotiations into the public sphere. But no, the judiciary is part of the same government, and testimony and filings deemed to be sensitive are made every day under seal and in camera, in which the testimony is provided outside of public view. This is common, and Marco knows that. And besides, the executive branch is massively more likely to leak information than the U.S. federal court. Full disclosure, Stephen Miller and I are both graduates of non-existent School of Law. But it's my belief that if Marco is ordered to provide information deemed relevant by the court, it must be provided. Period. Full stop. It's not up to Marco Rubio or Kristi Noem. It's not at the discretion of Pam Bondi or Donald Trump. So Marco essentially argues that if, in his opinion, complying with a court order would somehow jeopardize U.S. diplomacy, then he is permitted to ignore that order. That, of course, is not the case. Certainly, the Trump administration could argue against compliance by citing diplomatic concerns to the court, but the final decision of the court must be obeyed. So Marco's suggestion that he would refuse to comply would portend a constitutional crisis. But I don't believe the Trump administration is ready to fully break with the Constitution. Yet. However, it appears that the Trump administration has put the U.S. on the road to becoming a totalitarian regime, and Rubio's defiant threat is just one more step on that road. Once Trump does openly defy the courts, we will enter into an entirely new and very dark period in America. I believe we'll quickly see our country descend into brutal totalitarianism, with Trump summarily rounding up all his detractors. I truly hope I'm wrong about that. But he's plainly obsessed with retribution against those attempting to hold him accountable for his crimes and those who openly criticize him. If you'd like to see more of this content, it's free to subscribe, and you can tap on the link right up here. And again, please share a link with your friends and family. Until next time, fair winds.